I have always wanted to do that. Hi, I'm Steve Kime. Welcome to City Connections. I have the privilege of serving as the Director of Public Relations and Marketing for the City of Enid. Well, on City Connections this week, we're talking fire prevention. Thank you for joining us today. You're going to enjoy our show, and we'll be back right after this.
Enid, Oklahoma, from wheat fields to the economic hub of Northwest Oklahoma. The social, medical, and educational center for the region. Enid is a safe and economic place to live, work, and raise a family. A city with an entrepreneurial spirit. Enid is a community overflowing with boundless opportunities, building an original heritage and pulsating with a vibrant quality of life. Now join Steve Kime as he brings another exciting edition of City Connections.
Welcome back to City Connections. Thank you for staying with us. My guest now is the Fire Marshal for the Enid Fire Department, Ken Helms. Ken, thank you for joining us on City Connections today. Right off the bat, you know, when I think of Marshal, this dates me. I think of Marshal Dillon on Gun and Smoke, okay, when I think of Marshal. Tell us, what is a Fire Marshal all about?
Well, the fire chief is the administrative head of the department.
Okay.
He's my boss. The fire marshal is responsible for the fire prevention division. So I have 3 assistant fire marshals. We focus on things like inspection and code enforcement, fire investigations, and then all of our public safety education programs. So everything having to do with fire prevention, that's the fire marshal's responsibility.
You know, this program, City Connections, is airing throughout the month of October, and I believe October 7th through 11th is, or close to those dates, is Fire Prevention Week. But again, this is going to air throughout the month of October. And the purpose for our City Connection programs is raise the awareness about what fire prevention is all about. So, Ken, if you can you give us a little historical background? You know, I remember as a little kid of hearing about Fire Prevention Week. When did this all start? It had to be way back when.
Well, it started actually to commemorate the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. That occurred on October 9th of that year. It was a tremendous fire, burned down almost all of Chicago.
Sure.
That's the one that you hear about. They talk about Miss O'Leary's cow kicked over the lamp and caused the fire. But we've learned since then that's probably not the case. There are a lot of different theories about exactly how that fire started, but it was a huge conflagration, a tremendous loss of property and life. So in 1911, I believe it was, President Woodrow Wilson declared the first Fire Prevention Day. It was the 40-year anniversary of the Great Chicago Fire. And then in 1925, President Coolidge expanded it to Fire Prevention Week. And we've been using that week ever since then in the fire service to promote fire safety and fire awareness throughout the country.
I can see as your role as Fire Marshal, excuse me, you're kind of a walking encyclopedia. For you to quote those dates, I'm impressed to know which president, which date. So that explains to me the Chicago Fire was in October, therefore October seems to be that time that emphasis is on
That's right.
fire
The fire
prevention.
occurred on October the 9th, and Fire Prevention Week always falls on the week that has October 9th in that week. So this year, I think it's the 6th through the 12th. So
We'll have more with Fire Marshal Ken Helms right after this. Thank you for staying with us on City Connections.
Hello, I'm Chief Joe Jackson of the Enid Fire Department. The mission of the Enid Fire Department is to serve the public and safeguard the community by preventing or minimizing the impact of emergency situations to life, environment, and property. If I can be of service to you, please contact me at the number on our website. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Steve Kime with the City of Enid. Thank you for staying with us on City Connections. Now, my guest is Ken Helms, the Fire Marshal for the Enid Fire Department. Ken, I remember growing up in Perry, Oklahoma. Now, this kind of dates me, but this would go back to the 60s. Are you familiar with the 60s? You
I am.
Yes or
Yes,
no?
I am.
Okay, you are. But I remember in grade school, the big old fire truck shows up, and we'd get these plastic helmets and a little badge, and then we would get on the fire truck, and they'd take us around the block of the schoolyard. Now, of course, this is way back in the 60s, so we're talking 50 plus years. And that was Fire Prevention Week way back then. Tell us about here in 2013. I understand that you go to grade schools. What kind of awareness do you do there?
That's right. We do still focus a lot of our attention on the grade school kids, partly because they're a captive audience and the schools make them available to us, and partly because young children under a certain age, and seniors are the most at risk for loss of life from a fire. So we want to make sure that young children know what to do in case of a fire and help make them aware of the things that can cause fires to begin with. So we focus a lot of our education efforts on them. We still do the plastic fire hats, and we still have the badge stickers. We don't give everyone a ride on a fire truck, but we do have a coloring contest every year, and some of the winners of those coloring contests actually get a ride to school in a fire truck. So that's still a lot of our focus and a lot of our attention for Fire Prevention Week.
You touched on something that was very interesting about, safety training or fire prevention training for the grade school kids or the students, and also for the older adults as well. You talked a little bit about the historical background of the National Fire Prevention Week, October, Chicago Fire, and all of that. Let's bring it closer to home, say for the city of Enid, even the state of Oklahoma. What is the fire prevention all about, and the training that you do, that you do locally here in the city of Enid?
Well, my division is responsible for fire prevention, and a big part of that is educating the public about things that cause fire, how to prevent fires in the first place, and maybe more importantly, what to do in the event of a fire, how to rescue yourself or save yourself from a fire. So we visit schools, we visit senior citizen centers and daycare centers, and just try to get the message out throughout the year, not just during Fire Prevention Week, about all of those important messages about cooking safety. That's the theme for Fire Prevention Week this year, is Get Cooking with Fire Safety. There's a different theme every year and a different focus. We do have a number of cooking fires in Enid throughout the year. People will put something on the stove and walk away and forget it, and they turn around and they've got a pan of grease on the stove that's on fire. What's the best way to react to that? Is there a quick and simple way to put that fire out? Or is it best, when do you make the decision just to retreat from the fire and call 911 and get our help? So we want to make sure that everyone understands how to react to those different kinds of situations the most safe way. We want to make sure that our community is protected with smoke alarms. We want to try to make them available to everybody, whether they have financial difficulties or not. We have some available that we're going to be distributing throughout the month of October. We've changed our smoke alarm program just a little bit in the last few years because we were finding ourselves providing smoke alarms for people that had the means to provide their own. We caught ourselves walking past a BMW and an Escalade into a $250,000 home to put up a $10 smoke alarm. That didn't make sense. So we've kind of reeled that back in, and the ones that we have available, we're trying to make them available to people that have a financial need, or maybe just need our assistance in putting them up. Seniors that don't need to be up on a ladder or something of that nature. So kind of retooled that program a little bit. But throughout the year, we try to put those messages out and make sure that people understand how to protect themselves from fire.
Okay. I have one more question for you, but we'll take this break. We'll have a question with Fire Marshal Ken Helms in just a moment. We're going to ask him, what are some fire safety tips or things that we need to look at in our own homes? And we'll do that right after this. Thank you for staying with us on City Connections. Ken, a final question for you. Here we are in Central Fire Station, and we see engine one, I think ladder one, and then there's your hazardous
materials.
Hazardous materials. So you have a variety of rescue facilities here, or pieces of machinery, I guess, here. But let's bring it closer to home as a homeowner or someone who lives in a dwelling. Here in Fire Prevention Week, what are just really 2 or 3 tips that could be easily implemented in a home? What should we look for?
Well, it's really kind of a common sense approach. If you just walk through your home with the mindset of thinking about things that generate heat sources and combustible materials, things that burn, and how to keep those separate from one another. During the holidays, we tend to use a lot of candles. They're beautiful for decoration. When you have gatherings in your home, candles need to be used carefully and kept away from things that burn, so be careful about your other decorations. Christmas morning, when everybody's opening gifts and throwing paper all over the room, not a good time to have candles burning. I'd put the candles completely out at that time. Look for other heat sources, electrical issues. You don't want extension cords running under a rug to where it can't dissipate the heat. It's natural for electricity to generate some heat if it's used properly and it's able to dissipate that works pretty well. But if you've got the power strip with several little power bricks for your phone charger and your computer equipment and stuff like that, and it's against the wall behind the desk and it gets a pile of newspaper on top of it, that's a fire hazard. So just walk through your home and look for those kinds of things that generate heat, and make sure you're allowing that heat to dissipate properly and you're keeping combustibles away from that heat source.
Okay, these are great examples, and thanks for sharing that. Well, we are at Central Fire Station, and we're going to change scenes here a little bit. We have the opportunity to do some observing, if you will, later on today in our program. And we're going to watch some firefighters in action. But again, we get to observe some of the training that goes on. We're not training, we're observing. And so we're going to change our wardrobe a little bit, and we'll be back right after this. Thank you for staying with us on City Connections. As you can tell, we've made our transition from Central Fire Station out here to the training center on the backside of Autry Tech. Fire Marshal Ken, you notice this new wardrobe change I have here. I'm not sure if these boots are for me, but anyway, it's all about protection. And you know, today we've been talking about fire prevention. Tell us a little bit about the training efforts that go on for all the firemen here at the Enid Fire Department.
Well, of course, all of our firefighters go through a pretty extensive training program. We have some new recruits now that are here today to do their first live fire burning scenario here at Autry Tech. And so we're setting up all of our safety lines and our water supplies and kind of getting ready for a burn scenario this evening. So
I want our viewers to know that even though I'm dressed like this, I am not in any training effort whatsoever. Penn Klein, along with myself, we're here for just to do some observation. So for the record, we want to make sure that no training involved here. I'm just on the third row watching what's going on.
So we're going to try to let you crawl in and get an experience of what it's like to see a fire develop within inside a structure. So we're going to gear you up and put you in an SCBA and let you see some of that. So,
well, I'm quite sure that I'm going to have a greater appreciation for the men that to do all that effort to keep us safe when a fire does break out and so forth. Is there any other final tips, Ken, that you want to share in regards to fire prevention that we may have not covered today? Is there any idea or any thought?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of it's just common sense. Trying to make sure that you look for hazards in your home and eliminate those hazards on a regular basis. Don't take anything for granted. Look for heat sources and look for combustibles that are around those heat sources and try to eliminate those. And I could talk for an hour and a half about fire prevention and all the particular details of it, but it all boils down to that, keeping things that burn away from things that are hot.
Our guest today has been Fire Marshal Ken Helms. Ken, thank you very much for the work that you do and for being with us on City Connections today.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you for being with us, and we'll have a closing thought right after this.
It's going to preheat the air at the ceiling, okay? And as that air at the ceiling gets hotter, it's going to create unburnt gases, okay? So as it gets hotter and hotter, as fire's burning efficiently, that unburnt gas is going to build up. You start to see the flames lick out across the ceiling. It's getting hotter, it's easier for it to reach out for air. But you see the smoke starting to layer out through the room. Can you see, Steve? Hold on to it now, get out in front of you. Yep. Stop. 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 See there, we never put water on the fire. Putting up in that hot layer at the ceiling turns it to steam.
Thank you for joining us on City Connections. It's been my privilege to share with you this information about Fire Prevention Week here in the city of Enid. Special thanks goes to Fire Marshal Ken Helms. Appreciate Ken sharing with us his expertise and some helpful tips that we can apply in our own lives in regard to fire prevention. And I want to say special thanks to Penn Klein with Pegasus for his behind-the-scenes work and also the filming of City Connections. So again, thank you for joining us. I'm Steve Kime with the City of Enid. It's been my pleasure to be with you today. Make it a great day. If you have a topic or suggestion that you'd like to see covered here on City Connections, please email me at thefuture@enid.org.